Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, it's an all-Pundits show with Helen Foley, Randi Thompson, and Chase Whittemore. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Hello, is this D&D Roofing?
Yes, it is. How may I help you?
You did such a great job on my roof. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner.
Oh, can I speak to your supervisor?
Sure.
How may I help you?
I love your work. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner. We're all owners. Well, that's why at D&D we work so hard to keep your home safe and sound.
Oh, no wonder.
D&D Roofing and Sheet Metal. Local, employee-owned, here for you.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're very excited. We have an all-Pundit show with a great lineup today. Helen Foley is here, the president of Foley Public Affairs, from her living room that looks like, remarkably like the interior of an automobile. Randi Thompson is the Nevada State Director of the National Federation of Independent Business, and Chase Whittemore is an attorney with Argentum Partners. Pleasure to have you all here. Helen, let's start out with you and talk about what's going on in Georgia. Your thoughts?
Oh, my heavens. I was supposed to be down there for voter protection this week, but I have a 94-year-old mother, and I just decided I couldn't do it. This is a very exciting time, especially with what the president did on Saturday. I understand that one of the senior members of the election board this morning has called for a lawsuit about him trying to interfere with their election. So I will be very excited to see what President Trump's speech is going to be tonight, if he even mentions the two senatorial candidates or if he just talks about himself. There's a lot on the line. There's a lot at stake, not for the presidential election, but for the Senate, the U.S. Senate. And we're all watching very carefully.
Randi?
Well, it's not just the U.S. Senate, it's also the Nevada legislature, because if the Senate does go Democrat and Schumer and Pelosi are promising to make big bailouts to states, Nevada's budget will benefit. So there is definitely a state impact across the country. Every state will benefit if the Democrats hold the Senate. We're all watching this race very closely. It means it means a lot to every state budget.
Okay, so you're a right-of-center conservative. What are your thoughts on the potential for Nevada to benefit?
I'm praying that both Republican senators get elected in Georgia, so that we can at least keep the Senate in Republican hands to balance the power that we have in Washington. I don't think we should be expecting big blue state bailouts when other states have been responsible about their budgeting, and New York and Illinois are not. So I'm not supportive of bailing out bad states. I think Nevada could justifiably receive federal dollars because they've done a good job of balancing their budget.
Okay, so you're the lawyer here, Chase. Your thoughts on this from your legal perspective?
Well, I think Randi brings up a good point in that these bailouts are probably going to happen if Georgia does flip blue. But I mean, from the legal perspective, it's just so bizarre, all these different lawsuits, how many there have been and how many have failed. And probably there's going to be more. So, it's impossible almost to keep up with how many lawsuits there have been and what they all mean. So but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on Tuesday.
Helen, isn't this the Full Employment Act for attorneys to just keep these going? But on a serious note, the president has already raised over $200 million based on all of this. Isn't this down to all about money now?
Oh, no. I think it's down to democracy and how we have elections and what those elections mean. And when you have all of these states in the nation certifying these ballots, and he comes off with this wild thing and begging for 11,700 something votes, he is a wackadoodle. He is absolutely certifiable crazy because he now has said it so many times, he believes his own garbage. And shame on all of those members of Congress in the Senate and the House that are going along with this. I think it is totally shameful and a disastrous situation for our democracy.
Randy?
Well, I don't disagree with Helen that the man is a total narcissist. Wackadoodle, borderline. But I think we've got to look at truly voter integrity and at our voting system. If our courts started certifying or started questioning the integrity of our elections, you would see a crumbling of our democracy. So I think the courts are in line with these legislatures and these secretaries of states and saying, okay, no, all's good here. Don't pay attention to the guy behind the curtain. I think we really do have a voter integrity issue. I think we have voting election fraud, and I think we need to really start addressing it. Maybe it's not as broad scale as this president likes to think, and yet we have a lot of Americans, millions of Americans, who don't trust our election system, and that is the core of democracy. So I think once this election is over and the dust is settled, every state needs to look at its election laws and really get back to making our voters feel secure about how their election and their vote is counted.
All right, so do you personally believe that there is a large enough amount of fraud, if we give credence to the fact that there is always going to be some fraud in every election, do you give credence to the level of fraud that's being accused?
Well, just look at Clark County. When the Clark County registrar said 139 votes he could not tally in a race that was lost by 10 votes, then I say yes, there is enough fraud to question, maybe not on a grander scale, but on a smaller scale. We need to look at what were those 139 ballots that the Clark County guy couldn't count. So yeah, there are issues, and we need to restore that system where, as Karl Marx said, it's not really a matter who votes, it's who counts the votes. Who is counting the votes? Where is that integrity? Where's that accountability? Where's that transparency?
Does that give you the quote of the day here that you're quoting Karl Marx? And Chase, your thoughts on this?
I couldn't agree more with what Randy just said. I mean, regardless of how widespread the fraud was or wasn't, what has been brought to light is the fact that a lot of the country distrusts the vote and the count. And moving forward, if there's one good thing, always looking for the positive here, is that we'll have to look at every single election moving forward and all the laws, and we will beef up all the integrity we can, because we cannot have this happen again. So from that standpoint, I think, at least there was one good thing, which we're all talking about this, and we need to come together to fix everything wrong with the election, and any instances of fraud need to be fully vetted and investigated and fought for in the courts. So, but moving forward, we got to look at all the laws.
Well, you know what? We did just that. The Trump administration took all of these lawsuits in so many states and went to the courts, and the courts on every one of these cases threw them out, said they were meritless, and it didn't work. What happened? Why didn't he win all these cases? He throws all these allegations out, alleged fraud, alleged all of these things. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? And why did the courts reject it? Even the Supreme Court, who he handpicked 3 of them, went against him and didn't think it merited being heard.
Well, I think you're right, sort of, but that's not the entire picture, because you're talking about a lot of the lawsuits failed for procedural reasons, not because they were meritless, but there were certain rules that were not followed in the procedures for those lawsuits,
Well, maybe
standing
they need
issues,
to get
those
better
things, but they're
attorneys.
not. No, it doesn't come down to that. It definitely comes down to fixing some of the laws. As you know, some laws are broken and need to be fixed. That's why, we're all paid to go fix them.
So we're supposed to throw out the whole presidency of the United States and our electoral process because Donald Trump allegedly says these things. The courts said, no, you are not correct. Whether it was procedural or not, he did not win in any of these states. And yet he keeps carrying on that, all I need are this many votes. And I think if you, redo it, you can give me those votes. That is against the law, and that man should be prosecuted. And those attorneys that were all in the room for that call, and Mark Meadows, shame on all of them. This is terrible what they're doing to the United States.
Chase?
I think, the point you're making is that Trump is the leader of these lawsuits, and therefore, they must be wrong. A lot of people have faith that the courts will look at it and say, there is a distinction between a procedural issue and the actual merits, and none of these cases have been tried on the merits. Every single one of them has been some sort of procedural issue with the lawsuit. So the point, though, that we were making, that Randy and I were both making, is that at least at some point we have to look at all of our election laws state by state and at the federal level and make sure going forward that this does not happen again.
Well, as long as the vote is not suppressed. When they say, let's take a look at voting procedures, that is a clue that blacks need to be restricted in voting. And that's what's happened over the years. You cannot do that. I do believe that we can take a look at all the states. But, you've got so many Republican leaders in these states who are governors, who are, look at Barbara Sagaski in our state. She believes that our state ran our election well, and that there was not.
She's not biased at all. She's not biased at all in that opinion. I mean, if you're sitting there in the office, you're going to be the first person that takes the blame. Nobody wants to take the blame for this. So of course she's going to say, oh, everything was fine. Everything was fine on my watch. Of course she's going to say that.
Randy, Bill Barr said no widespread fraud. The Attorney General of the United States.
Right, but I just made the point that the Clark County voter registrar himself admitted he had 139 ballots that he could not account for. So while I'm standing by what Chase is saying, there's procedure and there's merit. And we have not been able to really look at drilling down into those individual votes. I mean, the votes just happened very quickly, and the lawsuits happened very quickly. I should say the lawsuits came very quickly after the election. They didn't have a lot of time to do discovery and research. It takes months to go to trial. So the merits have not been really discussed. It's the procedures, and I agree with Helen that that all those things were thrown out based on procedures. But bottom line is, we're all still arguing whether our election was valuable and correct, and we shouldn't be having that argument 2 months after the election. There's enough people that have thrown this in doubt.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with more. If I could just get these guys fired up. We'll be right back after this.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Because of UMC, I'm putting my free time to good use.
Because of UMC, she keeps me on my toes.
Because of UMC and this guy, I'm here.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada. The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we have an all-pundit show going here with Chase Whittemore, Randi Thompson, and Helen Foley. Let's start with you, Chase. Adam Laxalt has fired a lawsuit challenging Nevada's inability to keep non-citizens off its voter rolls. What do you think this is all about?
It's another attempt to shed light and bring attention to this last election, and it's probably a last-ditched effort. I don't think there's going to be another lawsuit, but I personally I know probably 10 people that got ballots out of state that haven't voted in Nevada, have voted in other states since the last election, and still received ballots in the mail. I mean, it's what we did in Nevada, and I was raising alarms during the special session, is sending a ballot to every single registered voter was a huge mistake. And whether or not there was any fraud, it bears at least shedding a light on the fact that, it looks like there might have been fraud, so sending a ballot to every single person that was on the voter rolls, and then not curing the voter rolls right before the election, when it's just a huge mistake, I think.
Randi?
Oh, I agree. I mean, I was in Las Vegas right after the election and was having a drink with Chuck Muth, and Chuck was going through his list of folks that he was validating whether they were dead or not. And he told me at the time they had validated that 300 people who voted were dead. So again, I'm not saying this is true or not. I'm just saying there's enough questionable actions that this deserves serious looking into. I worked for the Republican Party back in 1986 in Pennsylvania. I saw voter fraud back in Pennsylvania in 1986. So this has been going on for decades, and we just have to recognize that voter fraud happens. We arrested one woman after the election 2 years ago who voted twice, supposedly. Okay, we have, one person got, caught last time. There's a lot more than that. We know that. But what are we doing about it? And this is only just shedding more light on we question our ability to count votes correctly.
Helen, you get the last word on this particular topic.
No, I think that there's an awful lot to look at. Certainly because of COVID, we had to do things differently. Was it perfect? Probably not. Was there widespread fraud that could have changed the presidential election? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But, let's take a look at things. It never hurts, but it doesn't make any sense to do it after all of these votes have been certified by the states and we're ready for a new president, and the old guy will not get out of the White House.
All right, Randi, let's change topics here. What are you hearing in terms of access for the public and lobbyists at the legislative session? Prior to the holidays, we were not hearing very much.
That's what I'm hearing now. Nothing. It's crickets. We have a weekly call. The business lobbyists have a weekly call, and we're all on the phone going, what are we going to do? We're hearing potentially in person, but you have to have make an appointment with the legislator. You can't, it has to be just one person in the room. You can't bring in your client. And I don't know how they're going to figure out how to let us testify. But if they do the special session style cluster that they did this summer, that was democracy in the dark, and holding hearings at midnight, having people wait on a phone for hours to talk for 2 minutes on how a bill will impact them. And we're seeing some very unintended consequences now of that special sessions actions.
For example?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Well, specifically, they did not really look at the fiscal impact of the mining taxes. They passed 4 different mining taxes, and they have not really looked at what is the potential impact all the way down the line to all those small business subcontractors to the mining industry. So there are incredible trickle downs on that tax that they have yet to really explore. So, I mean, I think the election is a good example. I think the mailing out SB4 and the mailing out of ballots, I think, as Chase talked about. I think the unintended consequences, well, we made kind of mess of our own election.
Helen, your thoughts?
Well, I think that the entire legislature, including Republicans, Democrats, leadership, all admit that the special session was not the way to go. And, it was infuriating when you had 2 minutes after all of them had caucused, made up their minds. Nobody could be influenced. The deed was done, and you'd testify at 1 a.m. It was a disaster. So they have to figure out a way to keep everyone safe. I think that appointments with Zoom calls can be very effective. I don't think you need to cram everyone into a room. And, it's not just the audience. It's those legislators, those lawmakers are just cheek to jowl in those hearing rooms. So that's going to have to change too. And I think, with Senator Spearman hospitalized and a few others that have COVID, they're going to be extremely cautious. Now, one thing is interesting. We did not get our census information from the federal government. And so the census, the reapportionment is going to be delayed. I heard that maybe they would try to begin focusing on the budget and then have some other issues later on. I don't know. I know that Brenda Erdos and her team are diligently working on trying to find a way to have access while at the same time have people be safe. We aren't going to be able to just roam the halls and grab a legislator when we need to talk to them. We all aren't going to be crowded in the lobbyist room. It's going to be extremely difficult to conduct ourselves when so many people have not received the vaccine. We're all waiting with bated breath to see how this is managed.
Chase, what are your concerns?
Yeah, I've heard the same things that Helen and Randy have, and my take is that we're going to have exactly what we did in the special session for at least the first 60 days, if not longer. And it's going to be Zoom. Lobbyists won't be allowed. The public won't be allowed. I think it'll just be light staff and legislators, and they'll conduct, the budget subcommittee hearings probably. Close out different budgets, and if enough people get inoculated by April, maybe, and that's a big if, and that's all dependent on so many unknowns. But if enough people get inoculated by that time, I think then the governor and leadership will feel comfortable allowing people back in the building.
Helen, how do you feel in terms of uninformed legislators? And I don't say this rudely about them, but we have a citizens legislature. You were a state senator. Legislators rely on lobbyists, the honest lobbyists, because if you're not an honest lobbyist, then you don't get to survive very long in the business, for information on what laws to pass and what laws to pass on.
Well, I think we have to do it through Zoom. We've got to be able to, lobbyists all need to meet with lawmakers to get their legislation passed or defeated. And so it's up to them to get meetings scheduled. It's up to leadership to tell legislators, you've got to meet, have a regular schedule with all of the lobbyists and special interests and informed citizens that want to share vital information. So, there are good legislators. There are legislators that are lazy. Some will be very diligent in this and others won't. But that's why we have a very representative form of government. Real smart ones and others that just coast along.
That is very politely put. We'll take another break and be right back.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Come visit Design Outdoor's store and backyard to see our wide selection of fire pits, barbecues, and pizza ovens, natural stone water features and fountains, and frost-proof pottery. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
One of the most psychologically damaging things parents can do to children in divorce is disparage one another, which is why I can't believe I even have to make this commercial. Half of your kids' genetics come from this person you're spewing hate about. Your children have the right to love you both, but more than that, they deserve to love themselves.
Marilyn York might be a men's rights divorce attorney, but this is for every selfish parent. Shut up!
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And we are out of time, so our thanks to Randi Thompson, also Helen Foley and Chase Whittemore. Great show, everybody. See you in Carson City. Thank you. Bye-bye now. We'll be back. Brian Culpa Photography was born in the rolling hills of Massachusetts, and now he can help you experience the stunning beauty of Nevada in a whole new way through the power of flight. Flying has always been a passion for Brian, and at Brian Culpa Photography, he can make your imagination soar. Brian has the creative mind and tools to tell your unique story. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's Development Company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's Development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
You can now watch Nevada Newsmakers on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Nevada Newsmakers and become a subscriber. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching and listening.